So, welcome. Thank you so much, Sri, for coming and doing this podcast with me. I want to take the time to have you introduce yourself, but I wanted to say that this is one of my beautiful clients. I know we've been doing some great work, and I thought we'd have this conversation. And I think today we may just kind of go all over the place. We'll see where it ends up because we have worked on so many different things, but we'll discuss and how you found me and what you were looking for as a therapist and some of the work that we've done that's been really supportive for you, that hopefully is supportive for other people. So thank you again.
Thank you so much for having me, Taryn. It's such an honor to be invited into this space. My name is Shri, yes, and I sort of have a bit of a multi-potentialite situation in that I have many passions. I definitely do policy work, during the day, but I'm also a trained dancer, a trained singer, and I do that semi-professionally as a performer.
Oh,
Also,
cool.
love supporting and encouraging other artists of any medium. That is where my passion lies. And I am just a little bean in this planet.
Yeah, I love it. And I think that's something that we have in common, like this expression of dance and art.
I think I had seen, I think I had seen at some point that you'd done a session with other brown women. And then I looked at your page and there were these, I think you had done a few posts around grief for getting over breakups and moving on. And also
Mm,
this, I think there was something about somatic
mm,
healing there
hmm.
that really drew me in because that was what was missing in my arsenal toolkit. And I heard a lot about somatic healing and I didn't know what it was other than it was like the therapy world's equivalent to cutting edge technology.
Yeah.
So that's why I just like typed in yes to one of your Instagram posts and then you reached out to me and then we had a onboarding call.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I guess from what you've shared is that you had been on the journey of working on yourself and in searching for tools that were supportive. And then, yeah, you were missing this somatic experiencing tool, which I'm glad that it's become really well known. And for the people that don't know what we're talking about, it's a tool uh, taught by Peter Levine, who is a trauma expert. He's done so much beautiful work around understanding trauma and how it impacts the whole human being by understanding animals and etc. And soldiers. Anyways, this tool is really, it's somatic, which is focusing on the body. So it allows for us to, for especially therapists that do top down approaches, which is, understanding what's happened, the stories, and kind of doing this approach of using the mind to fix it. It allows us to bring in the body so that we're really looking at the nervous system while we're having these intense conversations about trauma and what somebody's gone through. So it is beautiful and it's necessary. It's slow. It's not overwhelming, but it's really just embodiment. And for somebody that like you and me that loves dance, I think it's nice to finally experience your being
Mhm.
fully, as in your body and your mind. And so yeah, it's a great way to process also trauma as trauma lives in the body. And tell me a little bit of the tools that you were using that were helpful and what you felt was missing. Of course, you learned about somatic experiencing, but why were you still looking for another tool? What were you experiencing internally?
Yeah, I actually was very lucky to stumble upon To Be Magnetic or TBM as the community calls it.
Whoop, whoop.
Yeah. I stumbled into it because a hairstylist that I was sitting in her chair and just told me, hey, I mean, because I was talking about the Enneagram, I was talking about these things on her chair. And then she was like, there's this podcast called Expanded, and you
Yeah.
should really check it out. And once I took a lot of time just like listening. And I just saw this completely like I saw that there was the people on this podcast were able to reframe things in their lives in ways that I wanted to for myself.
Yeah.
And then after a little bit of thinking, and it is neuroscience based, and it basically, when you subscribe to it, you have access to these workshops and these audio clips that essentially take you through binaural beats. So getting to a relaxed state, and then allowing you to access your subconscious, and then go through this almost guided meditation mixed with hypnosis
Mm-hmm.
experience. And I mean, Taryn, like, you knew about this when I came in, and it
Mm-hmm.
was something that we were able to connect over,
Mm-hmm.
to really appreciate it. And yeah, like that was so great for, honestly, speeding along my healing. Because
Mm-hmm.
yes, talk therapy, I never stopped talk therapy, but this was allowing me ways to kind of do things independently of a session,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that was great. And then, arriving at a certain point of up leveling, but knowing that you're stuck here and you want to be somewhere higher,
Mm-hmm.
somewhere on another level. And for me, the thing that got me suddenly stuck was this, like, basically, I had a terrible breakup out of the blue, completely sudden, blocked me on everything randomly because of the fear of a conversation. And this was somebody that I had manifested, right? So there was a sudden, I had this, like, I was frozen for a little bit. And well, basically, it came to you to help me thaw me out.
Right, right. That's the piece when you're talking about before we started recording around grief. So how did how did you feel supported by that, like moving through grief? Because yeah, I do believe that our ability to move through grief creates in confidence in ourselves to be able to process the hardest heartbreaks and still be okay. And if we don't feel that we can do that, we tend to not take risks and we tend to not move forward, which then kind of keeps us stuck and maybe safe and comfortable, but not really happy. Um,
Mhm.
so tell me about that process that was supportive for you, or what you learned the most that was really impactful around grief, processing grief with me.
I think the best thing was that I have this, I realized that I have this ability to want to run away from how terrible it feels, because I'm really scared on some level of how that grief, that fear of being alone forever, that, that abandonment, all of that, I didn't want to feel it, because they just didn't feel, I felt like if I started, it would just never end. And that's not
Mhm.
it wasn't a great feeling. And then sessions with you, I will say, you really made me face certain emotions that I try to skate over, because I'm very good at being like, so this terrible thing, and then just quickly laugh and move to the next sentence. This is something that I do.
Mhm.
And you don't let that BS slide. And I say that, like, with love, right? Because it definitely, I think there have been other therapists I've had where, because their approaches are different, where it would slide, right? Because but with what you equipped me with was that I could start to have the confidence to actually allow and observe what sensations felt like in my body, which is something I had never done before, until I had sessions with you. And that is a very powerful tool. And it's also very empowering. And I'm noticing, like, from when I first met you to now, I can see that I'm more empowered. Like, I feel more, because the more you're in your body, the more you're claiming your power almost, right?
Totally. Oh, so beautiful. And just yeah, I think empowered is the word. Like it is that feeling of like, okay, I'm not scared of what's here. And I do believe that emotions are scary for all of us to experience, especially if we're not coming from a background that supported us to feel, or kind of were holding our hand while we were experiencing something different, or told us like don't cry, like I don't know, my I grew up with my parents saying don't cry, or don't feel bad, you're stronger than this. And like it didn't allow me to experience myself experiencing something difficult and then being able to be okay on the other side, and actually kind of not even okay, but to be free from on the other side. And I do think at times it's supportive with therapists to guide you there, because it is a territory that you will not allow yourself to go there, even if you're told by people that emotions are safe and you'll find you'll feel better after you feel your emotion. It's still a place for us to actually explore within our body. It's an experience, right? Like we have to go through that. Nobody else can do it but us. And so that's a scary place to go to
Hmm.
feel those things. Because we feel like, oh, we're going to get stuck there, or we won't be able to, move through it, or it's just, I don't know. I remember thinking like, I'm going to die if I go through it. Like there was, just pain felt so overwhelming. But then you're like having a therapist that's like with you going through it, and you kind of feel very a lot more resourced with the therapist being with you, and or just a safe person that a professional, for example, will be like, you do feel safer because you're like, oh, if I go there, I'm going to be somebody's going to catch me if I fall, right? Which is, you can feel the difference if you talk to a friend that doesn't feel comfortable with emotions, because they'll feel like, I don't know what to do, I don't know, you're feeling this, I kind of am quiet, I don't know how to help you, and it doesn't make you feel safe to kind of go there. So that feeling leaves you with this feeling of, when you're able to go through it, that I can handle life and I can handle difficulties that come up. And it allows you to go like, okay, bring it on, bring it on, bring it on, not bringing on the problems, but bring it on life, and the complexity of life, and bring it on problems, or bring it on mistakes, or bring it on uh, another deep connection that may hurt me at some point. You know, it really allows you to go, I'm saying yes to life. Otherwise, we do stop ourselves and get stuck. I wanted to talk, because I know we talked about anger, and I know you told me you're a little new there, but I think would be helpful, because we've been doing so we talked about grief really quickly. We can come back to it, and your ability to maybe process that grief a lot more now, where you feel like you send me a message, hey, when I notice I move through these emotions, I'm like, they move through me. And can you actually share that moment, and then we'll talk about anger, like that comment that you sent me. I still have it if you want me
Yeah.
to. Yeah.
So I think what I sent was, I'm noticing that I'm embracing anger and grief, and then manifestations come through
Yeah.
when I do it to completion. Like when I actually feel just how unfair a situation is, or how wronged I was, or the rightful, it's like a righteous anger, that
Yeah.
I was afraid. I think there was always a piece of me that was holding back some of my anger, because I was always almost maybe toxic positivity style, like afraid to be ungrateful because I'm angry, or that I'm afraid that if I let myself get angry enough, that something I would do something bad,
Yeah.
which isn't necessarily true if you are offered the right tools, the right people and the right therapists. Like I'm noticing things that I want coming through so quickly. I don't even always have to write it down. Sometimes I think it and it happens immediately right after I experience deep anger and grief. So that
Yeah.
is very, very cool stuff.
I also love TBM, and it taught me a lot. And she says, like, it's not this oh, your energy has to be good to be able to attract. It's you're hearing your own parts within you that are hurt and giving them space so that they feel loved and
Mhm.
nurtured and cared for. And there's also this feeling that you like have your own back, that you know what hurts and what doesn't
Exactly
hurt.
that part. That,
Yeah.
sorry, not to interrupt, but
Yeah.
having your own back, like that has been that has been a process.
Yeah.
And yes, loving all those different parts of yourself, whether it's your shadow, whether it's your inner child, your inner teen. I mean, you have many inner selves.
Yeah.
All of that together allows you to grow your self-worth. And all of a sudden, so I think what Lacey says is like you don't manifest from like thinking the right thoughts, like
Yeah.
positive thinking affirmations. You manifest from your worthiness,
Yeah.
and your worthiness lives in your subconscious. Anyway, so I mean, it's cool, but I think what was the reason I texted you is because I was almost overwhelmed by just noticing that it was coming through so fast.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I think I've unlocked something new.
What do you think you were thinking before before you actually experienced this? So like what were your thoughts about before about emotions? You probably thought they weren't bad, but were you like, oh, I can't, I shouldn't feel certain things, or like would you
Mhm.
stop yourself from, yeah. It was so much harder, wasn't
100%.
it?
I thought that emotional intelligence meant that you could feel an emotion and curtail your response and not learn how to not let it affect other people. I thought that's what emotional intelligence was until I
Right.
started doing the work. And now I realize that emotional intelligence is yeah, sorry.
I really want to, I don't want to skip over that because that was
Yeah.
huge. I think that was one of the anger session that we talked about
Yeah.
with you. It's this and it's not only you, but it's like feel that it's like I see it around in Vancouver too and other places. You must not be too emotional, or you must be like this really rational, logical person in conversations, even if you're hurt. And it's I mean, it's very tricky to navigate that territory, especially when you're like if you're trying to really listen to those parts, because they take time for you to acknowledge those emotions, right? So there's this, I think, fear where it comes from is, oh, women are too emotional or they lose themselves, or and in a way I have seen where I have in the past gotten lost in an emotion and maybe had dysfunction with in a fight and just kind of lost myself through the anger and frustration and not getting anywhere, right? So it's not saying, I'm not saying that's terrible way of thinking. I think it's coming so that we can really have productive conversations and kind of create a safe place for people. However, it's not realistic and human like. It feels like really robotic. And so and it's also it's perfectionism. It's like, and I think that's where we were discussing with you. It's like, oh, you didn't realize that you were still trying to be, that word of perfect. How do I do
Hmm.
this kind of perfect?
Hmm.
And which is like, I'm responsible of my emotions. I don't put it on other people. That doesn't allow for authenticity, doesn't allow
Hmm.
for you to hear what isn't okay, what's not okay. It if you were like that in front of your kids, they would also just not really feel like emotions are allowed. Do you want to speak on that way of being and how that was like hidden, even though you were doing emotional, like even though you were doing a lot of your work, it was still kind of hidden and you didn't even see it?
Absolutely. I was like, oh, look at me. I've done so much. And I mean, yes, no, not taking away from the work I have done, but I'm just, it's funny how I really thought I knew everything. So that last relationship that ended before I reached out to you, I think in that I really thought I was being like such a great model of emotional regulation. But
Yeah.
all I was actually doing was maybe, and this is where you actually taught me a really great point, which is that, in relationships, people you care about, like if something happens and you are angry, it's okay to show that anger and not need to always run away. Because I thought the mature thing was I'd say, yeah, I need a couple of hours to myself, or I need a day to myself, I'll get back to you, things like that, really. And I thought that was me being so mature. But what happens is that inevitably life will give you opportunities where you at some point it'll come through, right? Your natural organic anger response or frustration will come through. But I think what I realized in our conversation was that I kept doing that, and that's why the very first time I ever expressed displeasure, this person ran away and blocked me and everything, because they just, I mean, obviously I'm not blaming myself for someone else's cowardice, but it's it's just interesting how it was a wake-up call. That session around anger was a wake-up call for me, because I realized that I'm doing nobody a favor by thinking, hiding my actual emotion is a good thing. That's not doing anybody a favor. And there's going to be ways in which I have to find in healthy ways to express anger in front of a human being who's angering me.
Yeah. And we can discuss that healthy way. Like that's a conversation in itself because,
Mhm.
I think maybe people that are listening are like their parents maybe expressed anger and frustration in a very toxic way. And they're like, no, we can't do that. So, we kind of go to the opposite side and never going to be like our parents. We rebel and we want to be this perfect version. And how like inauthentic, like it does not create a sense of intimacy if we do that with somebody. And also, it doesn't create empowerment on your end. Like people can kind of keep hurting you. I think I'm not going to name what situation you noticed yourself being angry, but you expressed it. And in that situation, you've always come, if things went wrong, you always showed up as being mature and kind
Mhm.
of like, I got it, no worries, even though things are happening that you don't really like. And then you finally were able to express, like, no, I didn't like that. And how that was, and people noticed, whoa, she didn't like that.
Mhm.
Um, oh, did we do something wrong? And allowed them to kind of take a step back to kind of recognize their own pattern or their own behavior or their inconsideration of you.
Mhm.
So I've really coached a lot of women around whether it's like their relationship, whether it's their work and scenarios where they express some sort of this like boundary that they need to create or something that they didn't like, and how
Mhm.
they end up having the respect by doing that by their peers or by that relationship because they're like, oh yeah, sorry, all of a sudden like people are just like, oh, I didn't realize that you felt that way, and they just start to have this respect that this person can't just be treated like this. So it's really powerful to show your your dislike about something. And yeah, of course, the healthy and the unhealthy way, that's another conversation. But there
Mhm.
is a healthy way
Mhm.
and there is an unhealthy way.
But just on that, exactly what you just said, like I'll just put it out plainly. I think, okay, so first of all, like you and I both share a South Asian identity, and we're both women. And I think you really redirected me to understanding that perhaps through certain cultural norms, I had equated anger to being inherently violent.
Mhm.
And that is not true. And I didn't even realize I had been walking around with this fear of anger because inherently I had perceived it as violent.
Mhm.
And you really helped me see this big truth that I'm now walking with, which is that anger is not inherently violent. That's the choice and someone who's doing something abusive is making. Anger can just be an indication that a value has been impinged or
Mhm.
a boundary has been crossed.
Boundaries
And
being crossed. Yeah.
Yeah. And the number of times I can't even tell you how after that session, how many people I went and told that to. I was like, did you know? Because I didn't even I didn't make the connections at all.
So let me ask you, once you started to make that connection, because this happened to me, what are you noticing about your anger?
Well, it comes up a lot more.
Yeah, it's very
Um,
uncomfortable, isn't it?
oh my God, the amount of angry crying into a pillow I have done. Yeah, it comes up more. And I, I've been trying this thing where I sit with it and I recognize that, okay, this is a crying child. This is
Yeah.
an angry child, maybe. And if I'm able to personify that emotion in a certain way, I somehow connect to that easier.
Yeah.
And yeah,
And
it's definitely come up a lot more, but it's and then now that's my opportunity to learn.
so what follows after?
What follows after I
Yeah.
feel that, I notice, first of all, like in my body, I notice is a neutrality that actually falls in.
Yeah.
It's like a opening and then completion.
Yeah.
I'm a blank slate, and usually I end up experiencing great joys, I'm very invested in the moment after.
Yeah.
That's actually what I observed. And is that I started noticing I was magnetic.
Yeah.
This is the crazy part. I started noticing opportunities just fall into my lap, people being drawn to me literally the next day.
Beautiful.
And that's very cool.
Oh yeah, I know that feeling when you process any stuck emotions. It's like, wow, just opportunities come. I don't get it. I don't know why, how this happens, but it's magic. And I'm curious, do you end up creating boundaries, or have you been creating more boundaries, or have you been like, what's that anger's been on an actionable level after you feel it? I'm not saying it has to be. I'm just curious.
Mhm. I don't quite know because this is all so new to me. I've observed that I am more secure in what I have to offer the world.
Mm,
And as a
beautiful.
consequence, yeah, thank you.
Can I
As a
just pause
consequence,
there?
yeah.
The reason for that is personally, from what I've experienced, is you literally created more self-worth inside,
Ding, ding, ding.
right? I'm giving the ability of like that hurt me, and I'm gonna allow that to be the truth. That means I care for myself. That
Mhm,
means I have feelings of, and it just increases your care and your own worthiness, that you are somebody that has feelings, that gets hurt, and you don't want that, and you want to take care of that part of you that gets hurt.
mhm,
When you care about something, when something feels like highly valuable to you, you tend to it, you care
mhm.
for it, you respect it, you give it what it needs. So that just creates that inner self value if you do that to yourself, because you're like, wow, I do matter, you know? Yeah.
Well, that's definitely what's been happening on my end. Uh, I've noticed also, so after feeling that anger to completion and then noticing the clarity, noticing the open slate, and then feeling more worthy, I've also been noticing that it's been easier to very calmly express that I have certain needs that are met to people that I love.
Yeah.
And also, if they aren't able to meet them, I say, like, that's fine, but I need you to hear that I need this almost. This is so new to me. This is
Beautiful.
very new.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm noticing that I just feel better in my own I just feel better in my own skin. I did not know that anger was my stuck emotion.
Yeah.
And this and clearly, like, I mean, you already said it. It comes up over and over again, right? But I am no longer afraid to
Yeah.
feel that fullness of that anger anymore. Because now I realize that at the other end of it is just a fresh start. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that is so cool. It was my entry point as well of knowing my needs. Because what happened before was I wouldn't even allow anger to be there. Therefore, I wouldn't even allow, like, if somebody made a mistake, I'd be like, it's okay. I would be very compassionate and understanding. And I would I would just basically acknowledge their experience, the other person's experience, and totally dismiss mine. So I didn't know both of those could exist, meaning I acknowledge you and your experience and why you can't do certain things or why you hurt me. I get your upbringing or I get your circumstance. But before I used to do that and then just go, okay, and whatever happened to me doesn't matter. And now it's like, okay, I get that. However, I also get my experience. I also understand what I'm feeling and what I'm needing. So both two, meaning two truths can exist at the same time. And it's allowed me to understand like that anger is like an entry point or frustration is an entry point of knowing what I'm feeling, what I need. And without that, I think I was lost. I didn't understand boundaries. Without that, I think I was lost where I accepted things that I weren't what I wanted. Without that, it's like a feedback loop inside your body and your soul that's trying to let you know that's not okay. And
Mhm.
if you keep dismissing it, how are you going to find an internal other system that's saying, hey, that hurt. Hey, that wasn't okay. Hey, your needs are this. Like, I don't
Mhm.
know another way that would tell me that. It's
Mhm.
emotions that just tell you these things. It is necessary for us to experience them because they're automatic internal communication with what the external world is and how it impacts us, right? So it is where I started to also experience self-worth because I started to understand what it is that I needed. And I like that you're saying that once you experience your anger is that you can express your need without having that like of that like that hanger in the
Mhm.
back, because it feels like then it's like I'm it's not even about expressing my need anymore. I'm just angry.
Mhm.
And then it's all like connected because now you can't actually express it. You're just being pissed about something, which is okay, but it's all you can't even ask for what you want anymore because it's all kind of messy, and the other person's just defending because they feel attacked, right?
Mhm.
And we always feel that way when somebody feels like they're attacking our character. So this
Mhm.
experience of like going through it, and I'm not saying you always have to go through it alone, but when you
Mhm.
do express your anger or in a healthy way, the ability to then know what your needs are and to express that allows for you to experience your self-worth and also let other people know that you worthy, like you care for yourself and these are your needs, and then they can also respond to that in a non-defensive way.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I just thought of something funny. It's just, if I may, I think another thing that you could probably relate to is this idea that there's this angry brown woman stereotype, right? And I think what's funny is there have been many instances where I've maybe stood up for something, try to, respectfully call something out, and it's like that idea of, oh no, she's this is angry brown woman thing. I think now I'm at this point where I'm like, no, I am an angry brown woman, but it's like a very healthy relationship to the word
Yeah.
anger. And
Yeah.
I think that's really funny to me.
It's your power. It's your power. It's our power. Dare they take that away from us by judging us? That's how they do it, right? I don't know who they is, but I'm just saying the people that are judging. I always laugh and I say when I hear people say they, because it's this projection of those people that are bad out there. But I digress. But yes, I think the anger is part of a part of our power. And it doesn't end there. We have to then eventually realize that anger is a surface level emotion, meaning that underneath it at times there's more sadness to reach, and that really comes into play when it's a relationship, when you're in connection with somebody and you want, and anger is like maybe your first thing that you go to, that eventually you kind of have to realize underneath it there's an ask, and or like a hurt part of you that has a need, and then you can show up with that, and that has to happen sometimes in really quick time, like in quick moments.
Mhm.
And that's the other work of which we'll get to maybe in our session, but in the beginning right now, I just think it's just really great for you to be connected to your anger. Let's just ask you, what are you trying to manifest?
Okay, what am I trying to manifest right now? I am trying to manifest a situation where I am able to use the talents that naturally exist within me, that is divinely given, to help people, the world. And that's, I think I've kept it a little general in the work sense, because I think I know how I want to feel in the future position, right? I want to feel like I have freedom, like I'm respected, and my thoughts and my ideas are valued. So I know, and that's just a piece of it. I know how I want to feel in that. And so that's what I'm manifesting. And the other major manifestation is the manifestation of my life partner.
Yeah.
And that has evolved since before. And I think you've also shared a special technique on manifesting that is your own special sauce. And I'm gonna use it. So yeah, that the like manifestations, like, oh, like the big ones are that, and then underneath that, I think I want to manifest more public speaking opportunities, because something that I've realized is, I mean, even through like my human design, or anything like that, something that keeps coming up, whether it's human design or Enneagram, or any of these things, one through line I
Awesome.
see is someone with like my personality type needs to be sharing their story, because there's a lot to learn from it. And now I was always like, no, I mean, like what do I have to I was playing small, thinking I was being humble, but now I realize that no, my experiences, my journey, they're meant to be shared with people. So I recognize that public speaking, more of those opportunities in the future, is something that I'm definitely trying to call in as well. Yeah.
One thing I love about manifestation is being witnessed in what we're trying to call in. I know there's this used to be this, I guess, what is superstition that you can't tell people what you want or to call in. I believe it's completely opposite. I think letting people know, allowing people to be part of that vision, and like, you know, supporting you and keeping you accountable is a
Hmm.
huge part of this. So I'm celebrating you and holding that vision for you. I totally see it.
The
Yeah.
first time ever I actually believe someone when they say that to me.
Yeah.
Like I'm weirdly at a spot where I'm like, yes, absolutely. I
Hell
know they're
yes.
already here. And I used to say that in like this, I'm trying to fake it to make it kind of way. But
Yeah.
genuinely, when you said this time, I'm like, yeah, I know. Like, and it's just it's so new. And I'm like, thank you. Thank you for seeing that.
Yoo-hoo. That's so good. Oh, what a beautiful time together. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And if there's anything you
For
would like
having
to,
me.
yeah, if there's anything you last words you'd like to say for somebody that's interested in doing this work, possibly, what would you say?
There's no time like the present. Just that it's a beautiful journey of learning exactly how to love yourself the best.
Oh,
And that's amazing. And I can tell you like with confidence that I love me best. And I can say that. And I could never say that before. So the work, whatever it is, whether it's therapy, somatic healing, like specialized therapy, whether it's hypnotherapy, whether it's Reiki, whatever your path is, or maybe you use all of the paths like me, whichever one it is, just honestly start,
yeah.
because I absolutely love myself.
Yeah.
And that is a great place to arrive. And that's, I think, maybe why I sound so secure suddenly about the
Yeah.
manifestations. Like, I'm like, "Yeah, it'll come."
That is a
So, yeah,
great,
do it.
that's exactly it. Invest in your inner world so that your outer world can reflect it, right? So beautiful. And thank you so much. This is the end. I will let you go.
Ciao.